Hello and welcome back to my Let's Challenge of BioShock. In the last episode, we were collecting up all of the items for Keyburz's bomb, and now it is finished, and now we can progress forwards and place the bomb and prepare to face off against Ryan. Now, there are probably some things I need to address, namely such as my level of health, some ammo, various things. This is essentially an entirely new playthrough. I lost the previous recording of this episode, and so this is my second playthrough of the game. This is actually my Survivor difficulty playthrough, so the difficulty is slightly different. Thankfully, compared to the original, this is probably the least combat-intensive episode of them all. Primarily because this is the massive story-based episode. And I was so annoyed that I lost it, because honestly, it is like the best story drop that there ever has been in many ways. There's so much good about what's coming up in this episode, and I hope you will enjoy it when it comes. So yeah, essentially there's going to be a load of things different, like location of Big Daddies and everything that's sort of changed. But essentially what we do need to do is we're heading down to geothermal control. We have our brand new So yeah, so you might see some various things that are slightly different. Gonna buy a bunch of that just for later on. Buy some of those. So get a load of electric gel that frankly we don't need, but that means I can just use it next, which is awesome. Frag grenades. So yeah, essentially I lost this episode, so I have done this section before, but like I said, this is hopefully the difference in like difficulty and stuff like that is not going to make any difference at all, because frankly there is the smallest amount of sort of difference in actually what was actually going on in this episode in terms of combat. So essentially, this is sort of like a mini little section of preview of what's to come almost. We need to set a defensive perimeter away from essentially the splicers that are going to start trying to break through these various doors, which is why you get these proximity mines, and they are indeed rather useful to use. I generally put 2 on each side. We'll probably want to refresh them at some point. And then also we can go down to our trap bolts, and we can actually put one there, put one there, put one over there, put one over there. It's not too difficult, frankly, and I don't expect it to be any harder on this difficulty, so but you know, that could be some famous last words, but we shall see. So, as you can see, we are now trying to release the magma, and what that will do is essentially overload everything and allow us to go down and attach Keyburz's bomb to the bulkhead in order to overload Ryan's door and allow us to access his area. So there we go. So yeah, the reason my health is higher than, as in total health, max health is higher than it could be in the last episodes, is because I realized that essentially we could play through the game on New Game Plus, and the benefits of doing that relative to normal is that in New Game Plus, you actually get to keep all of the stat boosts that you've given yourself, which is great personally for me on my trying to get through Survivor. Obviously, if I get through Survivor, then you get a trophy, and I'll be very close to getting my platinum trophy for the game, which is something that I always like to try and do. And and stuff like that. So there are a few things that are pretty useful for us to do here. Always forget that you can only hold 200 electric drill. Anyway, so that is that area done there. So that means what we can do is we can now turn around and we can head through to the next area. I'm praying that there aren't any, I'm not going to miss any diaries or anything like that, but I don't think there were any down this way from the last time I played. I know there's a gene tonic that's located on the floor down here. And maybe a diary. I don't think it's a diary.
So far away from your family, from your friends, from everything you ever loved. But for some reason, you like it here. You feel something. You can't quite put.
So I think there used to be a gene tonic there, but because this is the second time I'm playing through, it is no longer there. So, as Andrew Ryan says, apparently we should be feeling nostalgia for this place, and yet why on earth would we?
Mark my words, your only reward will be a knife.
So we placed the device on the core, and now we need to get the hell out of here because the EMP bomb is going to cause all sorts of hell to break loose. We've overloaded the core, and now we need to get the hell out of here. Okay, we need to cancel this alarm, so let me just find, so there should be one. The box shutdown machine. Very close by, there is. Lovely. Hit that. You become mine. And we can most certainly use these guys as we go through this next section. Occasionally there are splices around here that like to play dead.
All my physical defenses fall. Will not defeat this. My strength is not in steel and fire, but in my intellect and will. And Orion offers you nothing but ashes.
Love to be able to just snipe this guy. Proving a squirrely presence trying. Yes, there we go. Lovely. Okay. So I think he was. I think if you can go through this section and you can just snipe him just from the entrance, then obviously the bot that he was controlling would then falter. You know, just fall to the ground, broken. Okay. So with that now done, we can then crash the circuit breaker down, and finally our pathway to the office of Andrew Ryan will be open.
All that matters to me is you. And all that matters to you is you. It's the nature of things.
So you can hear Ryan, the defiance in his voice. He knows what's coming, but at the same time, he isn't just going to sort of sit down and let us take his city. He's certainly going to fight for it. He's certainly going to do everything he can to actually sort of still hold on to what he's built. And now we have some of the best scenes in video games. God, this is such a good sequence right here. No more combat, I don't think, in this episode. All we've got to do is make our way ahead.
Sometimes you find truth.
And find some audio diaries.
There's indeed a season for all things. And now that I see you flesh to flesh and blood to blood, I know I cannot raise my hand against you. But know this, you are my greatest disappointment. Does your master hear me? Atlas? You can kill me, but you will never have my city. My strength is not in steel and fire. That is what the parasites will never understand. A season for all things. A time to live and a time to die. A time to build and a time to destroy! Come now, my child. There is one final thing to discuss.
What? Ryan set the core to self-destruct. This is different than what you did. He's got a mind to take down the whole damn city. Get in there and whack the chunk for the whole joint blows.
So there we have it. Atlas's final request. We'll just listen to the Vita Chamber one.
Initial deployment, Vita Chamber. Client Ryan Industries, stage 1, age complete. Sinclair and Alexander tried to explain the science to me, but Suchong does not believe them. They keep saying plasmid reconstruction this, quantum entanglement that, and then poof, dead people come back to life. Bullshit! Of course, Ryan will only allow it to be tuned to his genetic frequencies for the testing.
So Sinclair and Alexander are actually characters, I believe, that we end up seeing in BioShock 2. So now we have a few more audio diaries.
Did you talk to your puppy? She's very pretty.
Thank you, Papa Sushant.
Break her neck for me. What? Break that sweet puppy's neck. No, please. Break that puppy's neck. Do you mind? No. No. Very good.
So the pieces are starting to fall into place.
Advanced deployment, Lot 111, Dr. Sejong, Client Fontaine Futuristics. Baby is now a year old, weighs 58 pounds, and possesses gross musculature of a fit 19-year-old. The results are disappointing, but within expected tolerances.
So there we have it, and here we have it, the key to it all. Would you kindly? So, as Ryan has finally sort of pieced everything together, as we start to see, there's the picture that we keep seeing as our home. There's this security camera footage of what we can only assume to be us along the way. And then here are the links. Jasmine Jolene, the girl, the stripper who obviously Ryan slept with and in turn impregnated, who then gave the unborn, the embryo, the embryo to Tenenbaum, and Tenenbaum, along with Suchong and Frank Fontaine, in turn created something that could be controlled with a very important phrase. And if you haven't followed it quite now, this is what will tell you. This scene, one of the iconic scenes, and I do not use that word lightly, but I would certainly say that this is one of those, one of the greatest scenes in video games. This cutscene.
Assassin has overcome my final defense, and now he's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash. And then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master. Was a man sent to kill, or a slave? A man chooses. A slave obeys. Come in. Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run! Stop! Turn. A man chooses. A slave obeys. Kill! A man chooses. A slave obeys. Obey!
Hurry now! Grab Ryan's genetic key! Now, would you kindly put it in that goddamn machine?
Of course, Atlas would have to say, would you kindly, just before the end. And now it is all dawning upon us, and there is once more another director's commentary. But now we should head to the machine, and put in the genetic key, and everything will be revealed unto itself.
Nice work, Bio. In my life, but you, of course, the fact that you were genetically conditioned to bark like a cocker spaniel when I said, would you kindly, might have had something to do with it, but still. Now, as soon as that machine finishes processing the genetic key you just fished off Ryan, I'm gonna run rapture tits to toes. You better, pal. You know what they say. Never mix business with friendship. Thanks for everything, kid. Don't forget to say hi to Ryan for me.
So, before we can finish, obviously, Fontaine is now going to try and kill us with some turrets, some bots, but we can quickly escape by following the Little Sisters, and then we fall down to an unknown fate. Thankfully, things will be made clear to us. We will discuss everything that's happened in this episode, in this story, once we get to a place past this next little section at the start of Olympus Heights. But it's all just so good.
Welcome back, child. Welcome to the city where you were born. You are angry at Fontaine, yes? Now you know the truth. You are his tool, brought back to Rapture to save him. You have saved many of my little ones. I owe you a debt. While you sleep, I undo some of Fontaine's mental conditioning. His control is no longer complete, but he can still pull some very unpleasant strings. We made your mind with many locks and keys. Fontaine has most of those keys, but not all. Suchan designed your mind, taught Fontaine to control you. You might find answers in Suchan's flat in Mercury Sleep.
So there we go. We have been rescued by Tenenbaum, and here are all of the Little Sisters we've been saving along the path. And you can have sort of small interactions with them, or little discussions.
Who's he? He's here to help us.
And then we're going to be able to go through this door with the help of the Little Sister. And then be able to move forwards and actually try and tackle Fontaine as we leave sort of the safe house where they are.
And now you've got hooked up with Tenenbaum, huh, kid? She's a regular mother goose. Alright, fun's fun, kid. But now, go get stepped on by a big daddy. Would you kindly? I says, would you kindly go get stepped on by a big daddy? Seems like Mother Goose has been playing around in your egg salad. If you won't dance to that tune, I got others. Code Yellow. I just told your brain to tell your heart to stop beating. Not right off the bat, mind you. The heart's a stubborn muscle, but it ain't that stubborn.
So there we have it, the setup for the rest of the game as we chase down Fontaine and try and
Fontaine's control, then you can have your revenge. And we can keep my little ones out of his filthy hands.
and then we see Tenenbaum's reason for helping us. Obviously, Fontaine wants to keep the Atom. With the Atom, he still has his leverage, his control over most of the city, and in that case, you know, he's still essentially this, you know, huge threat to us, this huge threat to Tenenbaum, and obviously he'll still want the Little Sisters, because the Little Sisters give him that control. Tenenbaum wants us to rescue the Little Sisters. We will want revenge on Fontaine. So obviously, we suddenly learn that Fontaine had this grand plan. He faked his own death in the final sort of act of the war that was building sort of between his smugglers and Ryan's goons. And but rather than, you know, essentially just sort of skulk or sink back down into anonymity, he's then reappeared as this character Atlas. He built up this sort of army essentially against, you know, army of people who were discontent, who weren't happy with the way they, weren't happy with the Rapture Dream, how the Rapture Dream ended up for them, and so weren't happy with Ryan, and so suddenly became this folk hero, this who is Atlas. Atlas became known, around Rapture as this beacon of hope. And at the same time, we, this sort of genetically modified tool at the hands of Suchong and Tenenbaum, were sent in to act as the big catalyst to essentially bring about Fontaine's triumphant return. And yeah, now we're here, and now it's ready for us to continue. So obviously, I think I've actually uploaded some of these videos. But anyway, I'm sure you'll be able to watch the next few episodes of this series as we begin to try and counteract Fontaine's control over us. We obviously want to stop him being able to control us, have these mental locking keys that he has. And the way we do that is obviously by going forward and tackling the tackling these issues, and finding, with Tenenbaum's help, finding the not quite the cure, but sort of like the ways to undo what Fontaine and Suchong did with our mind. And then once we're free from that, we can then progress onwards and take on Fontaine himself. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode of my Let's Challenge of BioShock, and I hope you will join me on the next.